Hello everybody. I'm going to do a quick tutorial here to show how to make a handle. And this could be used for anything from a cabinet to you name it, but a curved handle. My problem is going to be for a refrigerator. And I'm going to show how to extrude along a path as well as how to unwrap this to get it ready for texturing. So first things first, I need a path to extrude along. And I'm up here in the poly modeling shelf. I need to switch over to curves and surfaces and choose this tool over here, the Bezier curve. I'll choose that. And I'm going to keep this turned on here, snap to grids. And that's going to make it really easy when I drag out my Bezier handles, my control points, so that everything snaps at 90 degree to the Z order here. I'm just going to go over 2 and then up 3 and drag that up just 1 unit, and then I'm going to jump up about 6 more units or so, drag it out once, and then match what I've got down below. That should do. Yeah, so we've got a handle, and that's going to be the shape that we extrude our geometry along. So I'm just going to pop a polygon disc onto the scene like so. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to think about how this is going to be shaped. So I'm just going to stretch it down a little bit here. I'm just going to stretch that down, and just to make sure I'm doing this in the right, I'm doing this in the right position here. And then I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And I learned a cool little trick just recently with the object selected. I could type down here, just rotate 90 down here into the Mel scripting area and see how that behaves. Yeah, and that'll stand it up 90 degrees, which is really, really cool. Otherwise, I could have just used the rotate tool. I want to point out something interesting. I could turn my snaps on, or if I hold down the J key, this will actually turn on and off, which is really cool. If I just want to use it intermittently, if I hold down J, then that will snap and I can get that to go to 90 degrees just nicely like that. And while I'm at it, I'm going to just think about the width of this as it's going to be extruded across the surface. So now what I need to do is just switch on over to face mode. I'm going to select all my faces. And that was just done with Shift, Command, and A to select all. And then with that selected, I hold down Shift and click on the path. And then up here, I can jump back over to my poly modeling shelf. I'm just going to click the extrude button, and this is going to look a little bit weird at first. It's just going to, make this really awkward looking shape. Now, under my attribute editor over here, I can start seeing that this option, Polyextrude Curve attribute, is actually available now. And the taper, I remembered I was playing around earlier, it's set to 5.017. I'm just going to change that to 1 and press enter like so. And that's going to mean that the end cap is the exact same size as the origin. Now I need to choose how many divisions I want. And this is when things get fun. So I choose the number of divisions, and voila. What's really nice about this approach is that I'm going to have all of my segments along the way, all of my new edges that are created, are rotated and scaled appropriately to the width of that path. Now, yeah, this looks really, really good. I'm just going to take a peek at it from the side because I do want this to attach to a door. I have to be mindful that this is actually in line with my Z-axis. So I'm just going to switch over to my face mode. Grab that front face, which is going to grab these side faces. So I just have to hold down Shift and just deselect these at the same time. Careful not to grab those. Whoops. So deselect. Got to do a really thin, so grab that. That's going to grab the front faces and the side, and just grab this thin little strip here with Shift held to subtract those. And now I can rotate my faces to match up as best as I possibly can, like so, which is awesome. That should do. I mean, I could pull it out just a little bit so that there's some overlap with the door, but I think this is going to be okay for this demonstration. So yeah, that's a really fast and easy way to make the handle. Now, one thing I am thinking, I do want to economize all of the geometry that I've got created here. And there was no option for me to choose how many sections were actually in between the region of where the bending was happening. So I don't need all of these edge loops here. So I can just double click, highlight that. Now the problem is if I just press the delete key, watch this. I'm going to zoom up here. If I just double click on that edge and press the delete key, and then I switch over to my vertex mode, I'm still going to have my vertices there. And this is going to be a problem when I do UV unwrapping later. So what I need to do is hold down the Command key on a Mac. It's probably Alt on a PC, Command and delete. Or I do believe under Edit Mesh, we've got Delete Edge Vertices. And you can see there's the shortcut key for it there. So when we do it that way, we switch back to our vertices just to be sure. Go to select, there's none there. So yeah, that's great. I'm going to go back to my edge mode, and I'm just going to say I'm going to need to keep this one here. This might be best done on the side view, just so I can see where this starts to turn. So this one's flat to the ground plane, so that's going to be the last one that I need. So I can just sort of scoot down, double clicking, Command delete. Don't need to rotate it, be careful. Double click, Command delete, and just clean up our geometry so that we have less data. Now that one's starting to curve, so I'm just going to leave that in. All right. And when we were doing the creation of our original polygon, when we were choosing our polygon disk, that was when we had an opportunity to change the resolution for all the edges that are going to be created around the side of our handle. But for this demonstration, this is fine. This is going to work just great. So yeah. Now my handle is going to eventually be smashed up against a door. So this is where I like to think as well. I don't need any of these faces down here. I like to get rid of all of the stuff that's going to get in my way along the process while I'm solving the puzzle. So I'm going to go back to face mode. I'm going to get in close there and do what I did earlier. I'm just going to select the front faces, hold down Shift, quick way to deselect the other ones, and then press the delete key. And that's just fine in this case because it's just getting rid of polygon faces, which works just great. Pressing the delete key, we don't have to hold Alt. All right, so I'll do the same thing down here. This is probably, once again, easier to do in side view, but it's all about fun. Hold down the Shift key, deselect those, take a peek on the front to make sure I'm not destroying anything, and press the delete key. All right. Object mode, press the F key to see all, and yeah, I think we've got a good object to work with. Now, I'm going to go through the UV unwrapping process. If we jump over into our UV toolkit, we will see right now that this object already has UVs. And that was just generated when we first created that, that polygonal disk. And it's just been stretched. So all we can see here is the disk. So first things first, we have to get rid of all of the history. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to blow that away. I always just occasionally from time to time freeze my transforms to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Take a peek at this maybe from side view, just to see I'm not losing any of my angles because things are starting to look weird in perspective here. That's fine because I've just stretched this window so small. Don't need my attribute editor. I just like to put my eyes up here from time to time to make sure that when I deleted my history up here, that this is all collapsed. So I don't need my attribute editor anymore. And I think I can shrink down my UVs a little bit as well as my UV toolkit. And I've just docked these shelves to make it easier to work with. All right, I'm gonna grab you, tap the F key, put that into view, then start thinking about my UVs. Now, the way to always approach UV unwrapping in Maya is to first ignore what the system has generated for you. Completely just blow away the original UVs. So first off, number one, create some new UVs. Ones that are absolutely complete. So the best way to do that is with camera-based. So we'll just get started with camera-based UVs. It's rebuilt them. We can see it over here. And turn off the checkerboard so we can see what's going on. It's rebuilt the UVs and they're completely intact. There are no cuts currently on this object. It's seeing this as a complete set of UVs. Now what we need to do is think about where we want to have a seam. Now, seam is going to be where a texture might look like it's repeating. We might see an edge, which isn't a big problem anymore with modern painting software because we can just paint away those edges. But we do want to try to hide them as best as we can. So what I'm going to do is just zoom up in, switch on over to edge mode. So I'm going to try to find an edge that's right in the middle of my object on the back side where the viewer's not going to see it. And then I'm going to double click and make a cut. So first step, do a camera-based projection. 2, select an edge where you want to create a seam, cut it, and then unfold it. Once we've selected all the faces. So go back to face mode, select all, it's Command-Shift-A, and then hit unfold. And we should get a very good result right off the hop. And that's looking pretty good. So I can grab that now and I can move it onto my UDOM, scale that up so I can get the most amount of resolution that I can. I can use the packing tools if I want to, but why not just have some fun. Now, I can see this thing's jumping around, and that's because I've currently got snapping turned on. So snapping is working for me everywhere. So now I've got the freedom to move that where I want. Scale it up to the edge of the texture as much as I possibly can. I'm just going to throw on my checkerboard just to see what's going on. Yeah, it's looking pretty darn good. I can see up here, in and around the curve, I am getting some stretching. So I would like to potentially gridify this and get rid of some of the curvature that's happening along the top. Now, in Maya, we can do that with the straighten tools here, what are called straighten UVs. So if I just grabbed all of the UVs, if I right click UV and then Command-Shift-A, and if I just hit straighten UVs, we'll see how this thing behaves. It's actually not terrible. It's not bad. It's gotten us a little bit closer, and it's currently straightening the UVs along the U value, which would be the same as the ground plane or the X. And then we can try that on the V, straighten the UVs on the V. It's doing a great job. Yeah, it's actually really, really good. And once again, just turn on and off our, turn on and off our texture just to see what's going on. That's really nice. Now we do have some stepping up here, which is a little bit awkward, but that's fine because we can just literally grab those. I'm a curious person. I'm going to turn on snapping and see if I can snap that up. It's just going to snap it to there. I'm going to grab these guys here. I'm going to snap those down, see if that works. Yeah, we'll just position it into place as best as we can. Yep. With snapping turned off. Now I can grab those and I can straighten the UVs along the U and the V. Yeah. Yeah, that looks really good. Now this is the tolerance here, so I can probably drop that down to a 1. Straighten the UVs. Yeah, that's good. How are we looking down here? Things are really good. Turn our checkerboard back on just to see how things are behaving. And wise person once told me, if we're seeing any strange stretching in and around a curved portion of our texture, we can just throw on another edge loop, do a little bit of modeling, and that will help to direct the UVs a little bit better. But this is going into a video game, so I don't want to waste any space in terms of file size trying to rectify this minor little problem, because the camera is never going to get that close. Yeah. So my friends, I think that's just about it. Now while we're on the topic of modeling, I'm going to take a look at my outliner first. I can see that that Bezier curve is still kicking around in my scene. That hangs out from before I collapsed the history. So I'm going to delete that out of the scene. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to put a box in. So assuming this is going to be my door. Now I could try to snap this visually into place like so, but I learned something really powerful recently about the UI. If I wanted to, and I want to snap my pivot point to the edge of the geometry, I would go into my Move Pivot tool, hold down the V key, and then move it, and it will snap to a face. I'm holding down the V key, and it's awesome because it's snapping to the actual face. Press the D key to get out of that. If I turn snapping on, this will now snap back to that plane. And because I started with my handle at the origin point rotated 90 degrees and sitting right at 0 Y, this is going to touch that face just perfectly. So now when I get into poly modeling this as my door, this is going to be just awesome in theory. Yeah, this is wonderful. Still got snapping on, which is fine. I'm just playing around now, making a doorway for my refrigerator. Let's go back to object mode. Let's slide that over. Now that's a pretty beefy looking handle. That's funny. So the decision I could have made earlier on was to make a much smaller polygonal disc, and thought about that when I was messing around with it. But yeah, now that I've got that done, I throw on some bevels and yeah, make sure everything's beveled, my friends. Give it a couple segments. That's going to look really, really good. Well, thank you very much for watching this tutorial.